What if I told you the legal system once recognized a ghost as a murderer? This isn't a campfire tale. This is the most documented haunting in American history. It began in 1817. The Bell family lived peacefully on the frontier of Tennessee until a shadow fell over their property. A darkness that defied all logic. John Bell was inspecting his fields when he saw an impossible abomination. A creature with the body of a wild dog and the twitching head of a rabbit. He fired his rifle. But as the smoke cleared, the beast was gone. Soon after, his son saw a massive, unnatural bird with eyes full of malice. And his daughter Betsy saw the spirit of a girl in a faded green dress swinging from an oak. The terror escalated. Enslaved workers were hunted by a two-headed black hound. The family locked their doors, praying the nightmares would remain in the woods. But the entity followed them inside. It started with heavy knocking on the walls. At night, the sickening sound of unseen rats gnawed relentlessly at their bedposts. Then came the screech of heavy iron chains dragging across the wooden floorboards. Invisible beasts tore each other apart in the living room, fighting to the death. The entity grew bolder. It began ripping blankets off the terrified sleeping children, but it focused its absolute worst rage on the youngest daughter, Betsy Bell. Invisible hands would twist her hair and pull it with agonizing, brutal force. She was slapped so hard that deep red handprints would instantly blister her skin. The father, John Bell, was choked and paralyzed by the unseen force. Desperate, John begged his neighbor to stay the night and witness the horror. The skeptical neighbor was quickly convinced when his own bed covers were violently yanked away. Up to this point, the entity had been a mute, invisible force of pure violence. But then, the low, broken whistling sounds began to change. The entity finally learned how to speak.
Your unauthorized
A sharp,
presence has
metallic
been detected.
female voice echoed
Evacuate
in the walls.
the sector
When asked
immediately,
what it was,
or face
it
termination.
replied, I am a spirit, once happy, but now disturbed. But it soon changed its story, claiming to be the witch of a hateful neighbor, Kate Batts. The name stuck. Kate became famous, drawing hundreds of terrified spectators to the farm. She loved an audience. She argued theology and quoted scripture flawlessly. She even recited two different sermons delivered at the exact same time, 13 miles apart. When a skeptic from England visited,
where you are.
she tormented
Look
him
at
by
you,
perfectly
so weak and
mimicking
afraid.
his parents' voices. She chased away religious exorcists by unleashing a pack of invisible hounds. A slave named Dean carried a magic witch ball to protect himself from her wrath. It only angered her. She beat him, turned him into a mule, and hunted him endlessly. The witch's obsession with Betsy grew. Betsy had fallen in love with Joshua Gardner. Kate sabotaged the romance, physically assaulting Betsy whenever Joshua was near. Broken and exhausted by the psychological torture, Betsy finally called off the wedding. The witch celebrated her victory with maniacal laughter that shook the cabin's foundation. By 1819, the legend reached General Andrew Jackson, future president of the United States. He marched his men to the farm, but his heavy wagon suddenly locked in place on dry dirt. Jackson declared, "By the eternal, boys, it is the witch." A metallic voice echoed from the bushes, granting them permission to move forward. That night, a boastful soldier tried to shoot the witch with a silver bullet. Kate violently beat the man, disarmed him, and dragged him out the door by his nose. Jackson roared with laughter, claiming this was more fun than fighting the British. But by dawn, his terrified men fled, forcing the future president into retreat. With the military gone, Kate focused her ultimate wrath on John Bell Sr. She called him Old Jack and swore she would put him in his grave. John suffered terrifying spasms, his tongue swelling so large he could not breathe. On December 19th, he fell into a coma. A vial of black liquid was found near his bed. Kate's voice boomed. "It's useless. I gave old Jack a big dose of it last night." They fed a drop of the black liquid to a cat. The animal died instantly. They hurled the vial into the fireplace, and a massive blue fireball exploded up the chimney. The next morning, John Bell was dead. The witch had won. As they lowered John into the earth, Kate sang joyful drinking songs from the sky. In the spring of 1821, Kate announced she was finally leaving the cursed farm, but she promised to return to the family in exactly 7 years. In 1828, she kept her word, conversing with John Bell Jr. for 3 weeks. She whispered terrifying predictions, warning of a great civil war that would drown the nation in blood. Before leaving, she vowed to return to his descendants in 107 years. The year was 1935. The family braced themselves, but the year passed in silence. But the math was wrong. In 1937, a journalist revealed her true return date was that very year. Mass panic gripped the town. Farmhouses experienced sudden, terrifying blackouts. Heavy wooden beds snapped in half, and corn sacks mysteriously emptied themselves. The epicenter of the terror was a dark cavern on the property, known as the Bell Witch Cave. Locals reported unearthly groans and high-pitched screams echoing from the depths. The panic reached Nashville, with radio stations broadcasting live dramatizations of the terror. Teenagers at a bonfire screamed as they saw the shadow of a woman perched on the cliff. Investigators flocked to the cave with flash cameras, desperate to capture the bridge has fallen. But the witch refused to show her face to the lenses of the living. Yet, the legend refused to die. Modern visitors still report horrifying encounters. One resident woke to find an antique rocking chair moving violently on its own. For a split second, a terrifying, pitch-black humanoid void sat in the chair. In 1987, a runner realized he was being paced by a strange, impossibly fast rabbit. The rabbit hopped onto a log, turned to him, and spoke in a metallic female voice. "Hell of a race we had there, wasn't it?" It mocked before vanishing. Skeptics argue it was all a hoax, a cover-up for a brutal family murder. Modern toxicology suggests John Bell's symptoms perfectly match arsenic poisoning. Was the supernatural lore just a smokescreen for a domestic homicide? Or is the dark soil of the Red River Valley truly cursed by an ancient evil? Time seemed to warp around the property. A suffocating chill would freeze the air. The memories of the survivors were etched in pure, unspeakable trauma. The forest itself became a hostile entity, listening to every whispered secret. Mundane farming tools became floating weapons of terror. The family covered their mirrors, terrified of what might look back at them. The flames in their lanterns turned sickly green, casting independent shadows. Heavy, deliberate, unseen boots marched relentlessly through the empty hallways. They were prisoners in their own home, held hostage by an invisible god. Even the Red River seemed poisoned, churning and boiling in the dead of winter. One neighbor managed to trap the invisible entity in a heavy blanket, but its immense weight and a putrid stench forced him to drop it. She could not be burned. She could not be shot. She was pure vengeance. Religion offered no sanctuary. She slapped Bibles out of the hands of preachers. Physical barriers meant nothing. She broke through glass and solid wood effortlessly. She lived in the walls, in the chimneys, in the very breath of her victims. To the outside world, it was a spectacle. To the Bells, an apocalypse. The legacy of the Bell Witch burned itself into the foundation of American folklore. A legacy stained with black poison,
that we must stand firm
ruined
in our
lives,
faith. We must
and terrifying
believe.
echoes. Those who dare to enter the cave today report an overwhelming feeling of dread. Cameras glitch, batteries die, and audio recorders capture nothing but screams. Modern ghost hunters have fled the property in tears, broken by her presence. Some say she was a demon. Others say she was the family's own dark secrets manifested. Perhaps it was just arsenic that killed the patriarch, disguised as a plague. But history cannot erase the terror that gripped the county for 4 agonizing years. The truth is buried somewhere deep in the cold dirt of Tennessee, waiting for the decades to pass.
Don't come any closer.
Waiting for the next generation. The artifacts remain. The whispered stories remain. And the pain she inflicted was undeniably, horrifyingly real. A vortex of supernatural energy that absolutely refuses to be closed. An anomaly that defies all skeptical evaluation and scientific reason. Would you have the courage to step foot on the cursed land? To stand in the pitch black and ask Kate to show herself? Be very careful what you seek in the shadows. Because sometimes the darkness has a voice, and it speaks back. The Bell Witch is not just a campfire ghost story. It is a historical, documented record of a supernatural murder. A perfect crime, executed by a phantom that leaves no fingerprints. A legend that has spawned countless nightmares across the centuries. And her voice is still echoing through the corridors of time. If you listen closely in the dead of night, when everything is silent, you might just hear her metallic whisper calling your name. The queen of the haunted dell is always watching. Old Kate Bat's witch has never truly rested. She is the eternal, unforgiving terror of Tennessee. This was the true, terrifying story
We are the static
of the Bell
in
Witch.
the silence.
But her story isn't over yet. Her cave is still open to the brave. What do you believe really killed John Bell? A ghost? Or a poisoner? Drop your wildest theories in the comments section down below right now. If you survived this terrifying true story, hit that like button and subscribe. Turn on notifications for more horror. And until next time, keep the lights on.